Madhouse Podcasting Network.
Ready, sucker?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Hold on. Let me see. Let me double check. Make sure I fucking get this episode correctly, because episode 7, part 2.
We haven't even done part 1 yet. Episode 7, part 2.
This is sliding part 2.
When did we do the first part?
We did episode 6.
I don't even remember.
You don't remember?
Dude, I'm smooth braining big time.
Yeah, you are, man. It's the middle of the season. Well, beginning of the season, actually. Damn, you're already scatterbrained in the beginning of the season. That's not good, man.
Well, I started in July. Remember that.
When did you start in July?
I started the chaos in July.
Did you?
Yeah, it was my first trip out to
the Orlando thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It is what it is.
It is what it is. All right. Since I've been recording this nonsense, I'm always recording, bro.
Yeah.
Never know what you get.
Oh, horse shit.
All right. Well, let's start this shit. So, welcome to episode 7, everybody.
Are we sure it's 7? Just checking.
It's 7. Yeah, it's 7. We're in. This is part 2 of the sliding series that we're doing, which is we're only doing 2. In episode 6, we talked about our history in sliding, and in this episode, yeah, I know.
I don't even remember that shit.
And then in this episode, we are actually going to get down and dirty into the whole world of sliding, and everything from history all the way on to techniques and scare tactics that you could do. We're actually going to do this one a little bit different, as you can see. We're kind of going to treat this as an in-depth class, so to speak.
Class, that's funny.
You know, kind of like a massive tutorial for anyone out there that is interested in the history and details of sliding, all the way through like just certain scare tactics that you can do. The scare tactics are going to be based off of things that we've done, what have worked for us, our favorite scare tactics, and same thing with the equipment, all the equipment that we've gone through, and the gloves that we've made, types of shoes we've used, and kind of give you the best scenarios in that situation as well. So without further ado,
those of you that are watching that might have questions after you see this, it would probably be better. If you have questions, it'd probably be better to hit us up through our Instagram handles instead of posting a comment here.
Mm-hmm.
And our information is on the screen, so you can just hit us up there.
Yeah, and that's response. And it's good that you brought that up, because I think that the idea of this video was came about, and the reason why I personally want to go into depth of this is for Scott. Scott is creating a business on training people the correct way. So we're gonna go through some stuff to a point. Can't give it all away, because Scott needs something to train. But I wanted to do this to really show everybody that there's a lot more to just watching a tutorial on how to make gloves and then just going out and doing it. Can you? Yeah, you totally can. You can go on YouTube, and I'm sure there's plenty of videos out there of ex-haunters or current haunters that are, showing you certain things. You can go ahead and follow those if you want, have fun, but there's a lot more to just putting on the equipment and dropping down and sliding and scaring somebody.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it outside of the actual act of gearing up and sliding, in the sense of how you prepare for sliding in general. Your body's got to be sound, and your brain, your mind has to be sound too. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, and over all the years, that a lot of it was trial and error for us. So now, like, what I do is I take that trial and error portion out of, and I know I've mentioned that before, but I always say that because that's a key factor. Not to mention the fact that when I get contracted for events to train their people, I actually can help reduce their insurance their insurance costs, because I can help reduce injury to talent and guests by working with any of the trainees on control and proper technique for them. So that's why I decided to do that, because there's nobody out there that offers what I offer to the extent that I have, the extent of the stuff I teach. So, but yeah, so let's talk about where it first started, or how it first started. I mean, this started out in the mid 80s, I would say.
Mid 80s, yeah, early 80s.
Yeah, early mid 80s with and it wasn't even sliding like the majority of people that will probably be listening to this see today. It was a thing where these guys would, they wrap their bodies up in cheesecloth and have volleyball knee pads underneath, and they just throw themselves on the ground and slide like 3 feet, like Pete Rose, or, baseball slide, something like that.
Yeah. They called them body sliding.
Yeah.
It wasn't even called sliding, it was body sliding back then.
Yeah. So those of you that are watching, imagine if you've tried to slide for the first time, imagine how sore you are then, and then multiply that times about, I'd say 9 or 10. And that's how it comes out from a body slide. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. So, the advancements that have been made are.
Yeah. If you've ever had your knee pad slip from your knee, probably will give you a good idea, because the only thing you're sliding at that point, or sliding on at that point, is your recap or your knee brace.
If you wear
a brace.
Braces. Yeah.
But I've had that happen several times, and it's, man, much props to those guys after that, because I couldn't even imagine. But back then, we didn't know any better. They didn't have the luxuries of, well, they probably did, but no one came up with it yet.
Yeah, it was unbeknownst to them that, we can use this.
Yeah.
And then as things started developing, Todd came up with the idea, hey, because he tried to do it and he didn't like it, because he just slid a foot and fell on his face.
Yeah, I remember his exact words were, "There's got to be something better."
Yeah,
and
it's like, bam! I don't want to do this anymore. That's just what he said.
I remember. The infamous words. And that was great. He and he actually went and developed something.
And the funny thing is like his gear, and then in the beginning, I mean, if you look at it now, it's pretty archaic, but it was, way ahead of its time for that time frame. I mean, he had, I want to say he used a brand called Trace knee pads. They're what a lot of softball players use. Mm-hmm. And he glued a recap to the top of that. Don't quote me on that, but that's how it started.
Right.
Because he's the one that actually came into the picture where he was able to find, pads with a hard plastic recap.
Yeah.
Nowhere near what we have today, but oh my God, I mean, and there's different brands that people have used over the years, because some companies have gone belly up.
Right.
I mean,
which we'll get into that in the equipment section, but yeah, we've gone through quite a few different brands until we found the one.
Yeah, well, there's probably 2 or 3 brands out there too that are really really use the most, but there's another brand or two, another brand out there that I think would be a good addition to it too. So
Just need to test it out, man.
yeah. Oh, trust me, I'm doing testing with new product. Something
Good.
that's going to hopefully help change the game
Good.
in that realm. But again, we'll get to that when we get to the equipment part.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, from with the body sliding, I remember going as a guest and seeing that. And about the time I started Haunt was when that started to change right about then, like a year or so before I started. That's when the turnover started happening and more people were wearing, ramp pads with a hard plastic recap and stuff like that. So then it evolved to the first stage of being able to actually slide more than 3 feet.
Get some distance.
Yeah, you can go, some guys now 20, 30, 40 feet, just depends, sometimes further, depending on the ground.
Yeah.
So, and as the years had gone by, obviously gear has, it constantly develops and gets better and better. And it's one of those things where, us being the crazy people that we are, we decide, oh, let's try this,
Yeah.
and it's not always the best thing, but nowadays these kids that do it, they have the best gear out there.
Spoiled.
So, yeah.
Very spoiled. It's
Yeah.
I kind of compare it to being in the visual effects industry. When I started, there weren't as many tools
Right.
to get the job done easier. Now, fuck, man, these kids have it easy. They don't
Yeah,
have
it's
to,
like night and day.
barely have to put any work in, and their stuff
Mhm.
looks amazing. So yeah, it's progressed quite a bit. I've been out of the game for a while, sliding wise, and I'm just amazed to see like just how everything is now,
Yeah.
and and where it's all at now. It's just so many different places.
Yeah, all over the place. I know we touched on that.
Yeah, I just watched Nights of Horror's video on with for the Freyfest slider show.
Yeah,
And
that
it's
show
just,
is amazing.
yeah, it's so cool. And just watching
Super
it,
entertaining.
it just
Yeah.
took me back to, the alley days and,
Yeah.
and just watching them, act goofy and
Yeah.
just having so much fun. And, it totally
And
took me back.
it's really cool to see, some of the things that we brought to the table, that
Mhm.
we created for sliding at other areas now, and it's still happening today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool to see that.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I created that, and these people are using that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But dude, I was just watching I watched their Sliders of the Night show last night. I was laying in bed tired, but I wasn't sleepy yet, so I'm watching a clip of it, and I can't remember who filmed it, but he did multiple takes
Mm-hmm.
from multiple nights from different angles. It looked cinematic.
Oh, dope.
It was really cool.
Send that to me. I would love to see that.
I will.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see that, and being, you get, when you're there too, you're sitting front row, it's bitching.
Oh yeah. It's like being
Yeah.
at a Decade show. It's sitting front
Yeah.
row is awesome.
Yeah.
It's that's how it was for guests when we did the alley, or even when we just did the front of the stage at the hanging. It was people just like pushing their way to get to the front just to watch us.
Yeah, that's crazy. And it's weird because it's not like that at Six Flags. They have their alley is actually a street with curbs,
Right.
And you just post up there like 30, 40 minutes ahead of time and you just wait,
That's cool.
That's great. And every one of those sliders too, awesome. You got the Exile Brothers, Dude Blaze, Tricks, Jinx, Hex. One of my guys in Dark Harbors has a small part in the show. He goes by Doom. Yeah, his name's Frightfest Doom. So
I think I saw him on IG.
Yeah. So, it's really entertaining to watch. It's one of those shows you don't get tired of. I watched it while I was there for a weekend, and I watched it both nights.
Nice.
it's like a cap to the end of the night.
Yeah, that's I'm
So
bummed I didn't get to see it.
yeah.
But next year,
So
next year
yeah.
I will be out more.
Mm-hmm.
You say like it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Yeah.
I
It
know. I don't
happened.
believe it either.
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
happen.
Sometimes you just gotta suck it up and say, "Fuck it, not gonna
Yeah.
bother." I
Yeah.
I tried too many times to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I mean, with the history of it, it's we'll keep that one short because it's it kind of gels and blends in with the equipment
Yeah.
aspect of it, which
And I think that might, I don't know, for you guys that are watching, that might spark a lot of questions as to where a lot of things came from.
yeah, and there's a lot of things out there. I mean, there's two films that go over the history in depth.
Yeah.
We don't want to waste a lot of time with the history. We'd rather get into all the stuff that people truly care about, which is gear and techniques and scare tactics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So with that said, we'll switch into gear.
Yeah. Just a disclaimer, you guys, though, that those of you watching, the brands that we're going to bring up, just so you guys know, neither one of us we don't represent them. We're not sponsored by them. This is just the gear that is out there now and that is currently being used.
Yeah.
And that's working the best for the majority of the talent out there. At least on this coast and some places across the globe.
Right.
So it's pretty crazy.
So if we start off with gloves, and I mean, we're actually going to go. The history is going to kind of go back and forth with, because even the gear has drastically changed throughout the years. So
Yeah.
we'll start off with the gloves. My first pair of gloves were the big tan gardening gloves.
Yeah.
And that had big metal piping that kind of squared off the tip.
The banded steel,
Mhm.
the stuff that I showed you.
Yeah, everything
Yeah.
that you taught me all of this stuff. So, and and it had the washers and everything. I mean, but
Yeah.
if we go further ahead of that, what were the first pair of gloves? I remember Todd mentioning his first pair of gloves.
Well, Todd's first pair of gloves were washers. Well, actually, no, he didn't have gloves at first. He actually used soup cans that he crunched down into like a T shape and he'd hang on to them like this. But as per his words, he says like they started getting sharp, so they get dangerous.
Right.
So that's when he decided to come up with a glove. And it's funny, I don't know how I remember this, but I remember seeing his gloves for the first time, and they were Ace True Value hardware gloves. So they're like the garden gloves, right? And he had washers on the palms, 4 washers like this, and he actually used plumber's tape for the fingers.
Yeah.
And the way his gloves were set up back then were like bitching. And the way he had it wrapped up like that, that's where I got the idea from the banded steel, because plumber's tape, it's kind of thin.
Yeah.
Todd wasn't super heavy on his hands. Yeah. So, the banded steel is thicker and it can last seasons on seasons. So, I made those and bent them around the finger. So it goes
right.
Slides over that.
Yeah. And there was a few ways that people did the plumber's tape. I've seen it on a couple people, but, they would do the typical, U shape over the finger and then use one that would wrap around thinking it would like maybe keep you from shifting back and forth. But there was always the issue with it always becoming pointy.
Yeah. And that's what Todd's was.
Yeah. And getting caught on this stuff. So like, I know, actually I take back what I said. My first pair, I had the L shape because I was too lazy. I was too lazy to do the top one because those things were a bitch to bend.
Yeah. Well, not if you had a vise and the hammer.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if I did, but so I did the L and cut the top, but the cut would always, you get to a certain point of the cut and then it would just give you like this lip, which would be a sharp lip that you grind down, but no matter what, it was always a lip. And I would always get that caught on my costume during hunt. So I quickly switched that out to the U shape.
but the first pair of gloves, and this goes back to Bobby and Wade too. They used to use gardening gloves with nothing but duct tape,
Yeah.
and they used to layer the duct tape on
Mhm.
night after night. And you know how that stuff goes when it starts to wear down, it gets really hard
Hmm.
and it gets theoretically like a plasticky layer.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I couldn't do that. There's just no way. You know, there's no way to do that.
That would make sense if you're light on your hands.
Yeah.
I wasn't light on my hands until I started getting into tricks,
Yeah.
uh, which became difficult. Well, at the time, I didn't know it was difficult with the heavy gloves until
Yeah.
so Todd came up with the lighter conduit,
Yeah.
the wire conduit piece. And once we all started doing that, that's when you realize, oh, these gloves are a bit too heavy
Yeah.
for tricks. And I would always switch out. I would use the big gloves for scaring in the beginning, and then use the small ones for
Yeah.
the show.
It does take a little bit out of you over time, but it's funny because there's still a lot of people that use the big heavy gloves and they instead of using washers. And this is something too for those of you guys that are watching that are really wanting to learn about it. This is something that's 100% preference for myself. I like the lighter weight gloves. I use like a contractor's glove, but it's like a BMX glove with 4 washers on the palms and then the wire conduit. I'm not super heavy on my hands, so those will last me a couple seasons, or they would.
Yep.
Some people use the big square steel plate.
Yep.
You know, and that's fine. It's whatever works for you. Some people like the bigger, bulkier gloves, and you know, and some people use big ass welder gloves like Spaz.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I know Paul Frechette and Mike Reichman, they use the heavy gloves the whole time. They
Yeah.
like them because they were, you know, they're heavy slappers. They like to slap.
Actually, I think Paul's gloves were. I don't think he had any metal on the palms. I know he did some. He had in the fingers,
Mm-hmm.
but I think his palms were just duct tape too. Don't quote me on that. I'm sure we'll talk about that when we get him on here.
Yeah.
Because yeah, he doesn't know that he's going to be brought on yet because I haven't talked to him yet.
Well, hopefully before this is airing, we can talk to him.
Yeah.
If not, then sorry, dude.
Yeah.
But we want to get you on.
Yeah, you're getting brought on, Paul. Whether you like it or not.
But yeah.
And there's you know, I mean, as time went on, I mean, like for me initially, the only gloves I wore were those big heavy slider gloves in the beginning.
Yeah.
Then I started realizing, okay, my hands are starting to hurt, they're bruising. So I kept those gloves, but I found under gloves. Initially they were a lightweight motocross glove with just foam padding on the palm.
Yep.
And that was all well and good for a while, but then I'm like, okay, I need something that's going to disperse some of that shock.
Yeah.
And then I looked into gel cushioning, and that was a game changer at the time. And now, even now with the lighter gloves, having a gel lined underglove is amazing.
Oh yeah.
You know, it really saves your, and the thing is too, people don't understand is that when you hit that hard all the time, you don't have appropriate absorption,
Yeah.
dispersion of impact. That pain rolls all the way up your arms,
Mhm.
into your elbows and your shoulders over time.
Well, it's funny too because when you're out there, you don't realize the
Yeah.
abuse you're putting on your hands.
Yeah.
Your adrenaline takes over, and half
Yeah.
the time you don't think. You just want to get that scare, and you slap,
Boom. Yeah, you do
or
it.
hit something, or whatever you do.
Yeah.
And it can be painful by the end of the night.
Oh yeah. It's always right here. It was always right here for me before I wore undergloves. That little bone in your thumb,
Oh yeah, dude.
that one spot.
Yep. Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah.
But it's also this part here.
Oh yeah. On the outside.
If you don't get the flatness right,
Yeah.
and you do it
When
like
you roll
this,
like
and just
this.
boom.
Yeah. When you roll your hand like that. Yeah.
I
So
remember I completely numbed my whole
Yeah.
right side of my hand one night. I
Yeah.
couldn't feel it for a while. I couldn't bend my finger. I was like, shit. I thought
Yeah.
I like fractured it or something, but it was fine.
yeah. You know, there's downsides to everything. Like having those big heavy gloves with the bended steel fingers. The big downside was like if you get stepped on, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a perfect example of it. If
Mhm.
you guys can see that here. Normal pinky, broken pinky right here.
Yeah.
If you can see that. So I broke it twice.
Yeah.
You know, because for one time was from getting it stepped on, it just destroyed the joint. But what are you gonna do? You know, it is what it is.
Haunt trophies right there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So there's there's so many different types of gloves you can do. Try them all.
Yeah.
As a monster, try them all. Try what
See, it
works for
works.
you.
I mean,
Because
what? Go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, because like they all can be used for different reasons.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like using the real tiny conduit pieces so they can grab and grip things and use their
Yeah.
fingers to, and that's great. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome. Some people like to use the big ones, but that make your hand just stay like this the whole time, but
Yeah.
you can slap.
But the common denominator is the wire conduit. Everybody uses those
Yeah.
because of the shape. Big gloves, small gloves.
Yep.
I use the medium-sized ones, and I actually cut them down. I mean, the wire conduit's got those 3 tabs, right?
Right.
So I the tip tab I snap off, and then the tabs on the side, I actually take a hacksaw to that and I cut below that,
Right.
below those tabs, so it's a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
Because with my gloves now, I can actually make a fist like this.
Yeah.
I have full dexterity with them.
That's good.
It's hard to pick up change and stuff.
Oh
But,
yeah. Yeah. But it's good to be able to grab onto things to pick, pull yourself or, whatever you decide to do out there.
Yeah.
Grab people by the arm and throw them up against the wall. I mean,
Yeah.
not by, no. Anyways,
Yeah.
that's for another podcast. I can't admit my wrongdoings.
So, okay, that's kind of the idea. That's the idea. We've covered the gloves pretty extensively as far as equipment. Everything can be bought at Home Depot. Everything.
Yeah.
Or Lowe's or whatever, a hardware store
Mhm.
that has piping like that.
Except for
Now,
the underpads, though.
oh no, the other pads, yeah, that stuff you got to go to a bike shop
Yeah.
or order them online, whatever, find what works for you and go from there.
Yeah, and I noticed that for me, fingerless ones, using fingerless under gloves were the best because you really don't. I mean, it's nice to have padding here, but
Yeah.
it becomes a little bit of a problem to take the gloves on and off
Yeah.
when you have fingered under
Yeah.
gloves.
Well, you just touched on something. It sparked another type of slider glove, fingerless slider gloves with pucks, with downhill skateboarding pucks. A lot of people use those too because
Yeah.
they don't slide with their fingers, so the pucks keep their hands, their fingers off the ground.
Mhm.
So that's another thing. A lot of people add flints too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different variations you can do. Like they even have pucks out there with flints embedded in them now.
Yeah.
Sector 9 makes them.
Yeah.
But there's companies out there that make them. That one company, Insane Haunt Productions, he actually makes different things, and he also has he made a puck too.
Yeah.
So the team that I trained out in Orlando for SeaWorld, they're using those and the bars
Oh, nice.
from him. Yeah. So the ground's pretty rough out there. So, but that team has really made it work.
That's good. Yeah, I know Pongo Joe makes he puts flints in the pads as well.
And the recaps,
In the recaps, yeah. He makes his own recaps, which is really impressive. And so I think that's pretty cool. Flint. I remember flints back in the day. We used to make fun of it.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
No, I still don't use flints.
Yeah, it's definitely not a scary farm thing. And I don't know if it's because now Knott's they just never allowed it, but we never used them. The thing about sliding is it's supposed to be a stealthy technique. You're not supposed to be seen until you're right in front of the person, popping up and scaring them. I mean, that was the whole.
Or you hear the sound.
You hear the sound
without seeing it. Yeah,
exactly. It's a ninja approach essentially.
Yeah.
So having flints, I mean, they're cool looking in slow motion. They're cool when you do certain tricks. As far as I know, they can slow you down speed wise. So you even using them in tricks isn't ideal, but yes, they do look really cool in the dark when you're sliding.
The last person to use those at Knott's was Sugar.
So
You know, and
someone
he had
did
those
use.
damn pan for gold thingies too that were so damn loud.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing them at Knott's, but
Yeah.
that's why I was saying I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Um,
The flints, like when you use the small ones on your toes or whatever, those don't slow you down. I've tested those and
okay.
it hasn't reduced any speed.
That's
But
good.
the bigger ones actually provide more spark for the look.
Yeah. No, of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
again, visually they're kind of cool.
Yeah.
I just don't see the purpose for scaring.
I like the look of them, especially for show.
Exactly.
You know, it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing a slider show and you have one
Yeah.
or two of them using them, then yeah, cool. But when you have every single slider using them, it kind of defeats the purpose, really.
I never used flints. It's just not my thing, you know. And
Yeah, not for
people use them.
everyone.
It's great. Yeah.
I'm
I'm not gonna say that I wouldn't want to make a pair of shoes of flints though.
No, it's always cool
Because
to have.
I'm like I want to do that so
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah,
you
I'm
know,
not saying don't make them. If
Yeah.
you like them, make them.
do it. Do
Use
it
them.
up.
Use what you like. This isn't about telling you what's right or wrong. There is no.
Yeah.
The only right or wrong is, preparing, and
Yeah.
the stuff that Scott teaches. That's the right stuff. But when it comes to what equipment you use, if it works for you and it's not damaging your body, and fuck it, use it.
Yeah.
If you like the way the flints look, fuck it, use it. Who cares? So speaking of knee pads, let's go move on to knee pads.
Yeah. So this will go back history again.
Yeah,
You know,
it's always
so-
going to start with the history.
Yeah. Like we did state, the initial knee pads were volleyball type knee pads, bike knee pads, and then with cheesecloth wrapped over it, but
Right.
no plastic recap. And then as it started to evolve a little bit, it became, like I said, that Trace brand knee pad with the cap on top of that. I know Rollerblade was a little bit, but those didn't last very long. People used to actually use Catcher shin guards too.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that.
Yeah.
I know.
And here's the
People
downside
do.
with those. They look great, you can slide on them good, but you have to replace them every night or two because you just burn right through the plastic and there's no way to put a cap on it.
Well, let's also talk about the technique that was attempted to use before knee pads,
Which technique?
which the roller skate wheels that were put on the knees.
That was actually ramp pads already came into fruition. This guy decided he wanted to try to go further, faster, and
Oh, okay.
didn't work out.
Yeah, no, that was
So
stupid.
yeah,
Sorry.
there was another guy too.
If
There's
you've
another
tried
guy
that,
too.
sorry, dumb.
Yeah,
That is no.
theoretically, okay, I get the idea, but dude, that's not safe.
No, the idea is to be able to stop.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's not.
Then there was
Not a good
another guy that put, it's the chairs that you use. I know we're totally going all over the place. But the bottoms of chairs from when you're in elementary school.
Yes.
He put those on the bottom of his shoes.
Oh my God.
Run and go.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, no traction, nothing. But anyway, let's
anyways,
get on to the pad.
Yeah,
the pads
so-
itself. So
my favorite pair. Yes, I'm going to jump into my favorite
Yeah.
pair, or my very first pair, DBS.
Dr. Bone Savers.
Fuck,
Wait,
dude,
that
this
was your
thing's-
first pair?
That was my first pair. I tried 3 pairs. I tried 3 types. The DBS,
Smith.
Bones,
Boneless?
boneless. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then I ended up with Smith. After
Yeah.
my DBS, I couldn't. I don't know what happened to my pair. My pair got up, jacked up. I went to the boneless, and
Yeah.
I wasn't. See, it's funny because I only went to those because that's what Paul used. Paul and I
Yeah.
think Mike used
Paul
those.
and Mike, yeah, they
They
both
were
used boneless.
they were all about boneless. They were too small for me.
Yeah. But the cap shape was great.
Cap shape was great, yeah. But and then Smith came. It took me a while to get used to the Smith because the tip of the pad was it protruded out so much.
Yeah, and the cap was rounded off, so you had to
Mhm.
get a groove in there to get a good, but
Yeah,
they were fast as hell when they were new caps.
you were all pad.
Yeah,
You were all pad. Um,
so fast.
yeah. So, but the DBSs were dope because they already had the gel pad,
The gel foam
the gel
inside.
foam inside the pad.
Yeah,
That was a game changer, big time.
yeah, and the recap for those were huge. They
They
were
were,
like
yeah,
this big, and they ran all the way around the top, and so they were twice almost. I would say one full Smith cap plus another half.
yeah,
So a cap and a half in size.
yeah. They were really
Those,
long.
yeah, and fast.
Yeah, they were long, fast. They were round,
Yeah,
all around from the top all the way down. So it went
yeah.
flat, and then at the very top was round, and then facing it, it was
Go
round
round.
all the
It
way
was like a
around.
dome.
It was super cool. It was like
Yeah.
yeah. If you just
We'll see if we can
if
get
you
some
take a
pictures of those
pill,
and
yeah, if you take a pill,
the capsule. Yeah.
take a capsule and slice it in half. And you cut the bottom off, to flatten it. That's
Yeah.
exactly what the cap looked like. It was beautiful. It was great for
Yeah.
tricks. Doing knee slides were awesome. Doing
Super
knee
durable.
walks. Knee walks
Yeah.
were that's where Daryl developed his knee walk.
Yeah.
May he rest in peace. Yeah, but kudos to him for creating that, and he's the only
Yeah.
one that to this date that I've seen be able to do that smoothly,
dude.
which we'll talk
Dude.
about in the tricks.
Dude, you've been hiding in the box then.
No, I've seen people do it, and it's still no one does it smooth like they are. I take that back. One of the guys on the Decay Brigade did it, and I was just like, yeah, that reminded me of Daryl.
Yeah.
But he glided. It looked effortless.
Yeah.
I watched the everybody in the Fright Fest show when they all did it down, and it just didn't flow. Like they looked. We'll talk about that in the tricks, but yeah, those knee pads were really great for that, and yeah.
Then they decided to go out of business.
When they went out of business for some reason, yeah, they went out of business.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, we got those through Wade initially. He told me about them, like, I need a pair of those. And they weren't expensive either. They were like $40.
Yeah.
And the best part is you get a set of pads with caps and an extra set of recaps.
Yeah. That's probably why they went out of business.
Yeah.
Super cheap.
I mean, I still see some DBS pads out in the market, but it's not the ones that we used to use.
No.
So, but before I got those, I was actually on Rector Fat Boy pads.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that cap was pretty small. So what I did was I would take older caps and cut them down with a Dremel tool and cut them to the shape of the pad around the cap and glue that on there.
Yeah, so I remember that.
Yeah. That way you're not burning through the fabric.
Yeah.
And that was just what a pain in the ass. So and then I stopped using Rectors because I got the Fat Boys. I mean the DBSs. Not to mention my dog decided to chew the shit out of one of them on the inside.
Your DBS?
No, my Rectors. Yeah, I still have two sets of DBS pads that are still good. So I actually, when I was doing testing, I actually used those to run some tests with the other component that I had.
Nice.
For impact check.
I have I still have a few. I don't have my DBS. Chris Mendez says he believes he has his DBS pads.
Yeah.
And I told him, I'm like, man, pull those out if you can, get pictures or whatever. But
yeah,
those are. I would love to get my hands on a pair.
Yeah.
Just to have.
So, well, yeah. So then DBS goes belly up, and then I'm like, we got to find something else. And at the time, I was still sponsored by the shop,
right?
By the skate and snowboard shop. So I realized, hey, we got Smith pads here, and I brought those into circulation.
Right.
And at the time, their recaps were insane too. They're really good. I'm not sure what happened to them, but the pads in general are still great. And that's my primary pad now that I use. Even though I don't slide full time at an event anymore, but I use that for all the training and stuff like that. Sometimes I'll use my DBS pads, the ones I have,
Mhm.
you know. So you got those two brands. Smith is still in circulation, and then also 187 Killer Pads. They make the best recap on the market today.
Really?
Yeah, their V-Ternal cap is the most durable, longest wearing cap I've ever seen to
Nice.
this point.
Nice.
You know, I'm sure somebody else is going to come out there. I know from what I hear, Pongo Joe's caps are pretty close to that, but from firsthand experience, this is what I've seen.
And that's exactly
with
what it
those.
is. It's all about experience. It's,
Yeah.
there's so many different factors. You have the ground, you have your weight, you
Yeah.
have also how rough you are with them. And
Yeah.
that falls in the same category as gloves, shoes,
Mhm.
everything. So, like again, Paul and Mike were, totally into the bones.
Boneless.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I keep saying bone. I think bones.
There's another brand out there too. That Roadkill used to use, Harbinger pads.
That's right.
Massive recaps.
That's
too.
right. On a
Yeah.
side note, we need to get him in here too, man.
I don't have any contact with that guy
Mm.
anymore, so I mean,
I'm sure we can I'm sure we can find him.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
that's 1, 2, 3.
Harbingers. I remember
Yep.
those. He was the only one that used them.
yeah, him and Jody.
That's right.
Yeah.
He loved those things, man.
Yeah, those were his pads, and this is what we're talking about, you guys. Like, you got to use pads that work for you, but we don't suggest going out and getting construction knee pads. I know there's some people out there that do use them, but we don't recommend that just because there's not quite as much stability and support for your knees. Support. Yeah, whatever that means. So, and since we're still talking about pads, there's another key element too that some people choose not to use, but I highly recommend because it saves your joints, is gaskets.
Mm-hmm.
Neoprene gaskets that actually match up with the pad. Like 187 makes gaskets that work well combined with their pad, their pro pad. And also Smith makes a good one too that fits underneath both of their style pads, the Elite 1 and 2 model pads.
Yeah.
And man, the first 2 years I didn't use gaskets, and then when I got the Ghost Town, and then year 3 I started using them, and it was a game changer. My knees weren't as sore, recovery was way faster. I got to the point to where there was no soreness at all, just because of that, the stability and the impact dispersion of the gaskets.
Yeah.
So
in addition to that, if you have knee issues like me, use braces. Use a metal knee brace.
Yeah, with hinges on it.
With the hinges.
Or spring steel.
Yeah. But use a brace. It's going to feel like you have a lot on your knee, but trust me, it's going to help you.
Now, we don't recommend sliding if you got bad knees, but
Well, no, but if you're going to and be stupid about it, then if you're going to be like me and be an idiot and just keep sliding until you truly really mess up your knee, and get carried out in the front of Ghost Town all the way to the back of Ghost Town, then use a knee brace. It'll save you. Because once I started using my knee brace, I didn't have any issues.
So
just couldn't move the way I used to.
Yeah. Now there's other things too. Like it's going to happen where when you're sliding, you're going to slide on the fabric of the pad, and you're going to get abrasion. Sometimes you'll wear through, but there are certain things you can do. Actually, you know what? Before I jump to that, we need to talk about how people used to wear their pads too. There's 2 different ways. Initially, in the very beginning, everybody used to wear them over their pants.
Yep.
And that was a huge pain in the ass because it caused hot spots and pinching because the jeans.
Right.
Then Mike Reichman came up with the idea, I'm going to cut a hole in my jeans and wear them underneath.
Yeah. And
whoa, that was like night and day.
Mm-hmm.
Minimal pinching, if any. If you set your pads right after that, minimal pinching.
Just make sure you cut the hole correctly.
Yeah. Well, here's a kicker though. I mean, we started doing that, right? And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to cut a hole, but I'm going to put a spandex gusset in there.
Yeah.
So you put the spandex gusset in there and you put your pants on after you put your pads on, and then you just cut a little slice in there, and you rip the spandex around the recap. So the only thing that's exposed to the recap and the spandex gusset helps keep the pants from shifting too much.
Right.
Holds it in place.
Right.
Now, I'm sure somebody's going to ask, well, what about wear spots? Here's a solution for that. What I did anyway is I took heavy duty Velcro with sticky back, and I E6000 it I glued it to my pants just under my recap, and I just took PVC piping, cut it into quarters, and put Velcro on the back of that and stuck it on there.
Yep.
The reason why I didn't glue the PVC to it is that way I can take it off and throw my pants in the washer.
Right.
I did that on the top of my shoes too, so I didn't burn through my laces.
Right.
Well,
you also used plumber's glue, correct? For
ABS
repairs?
glue.
ABS glue for the repairing. Yeah.
Yeah. Before I started wearing my pads under my pants, ABS glue. Because when you layer that up, it smells like hell. So make sure if you guys get that stuff, you use it in a ventilated area. You put a coat on it, you let it sit for 5-10 minutes to dry, and you do that a couple of times, and it actually turns into a layer of plastic. Now, if it's on a constant wear spot, you're gonna have to reapply it every night, but that keeps you from burning through the pad itself.
Yeah.
And that was a game changer too for me, initially. And then I started wearing underneath, and I'm like, okay, now I can just go buy plastic.
Yeah. But if you don't have access to any of that and you're out on the streets, just go get some black duct tape.
Yep.
Black duct tape.
Black duct tape.
Duct tape helps you through the night.
Yep.
But yeah.
That's an emergency tool.
Emergency tool, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, we haven't touched on adhesives and stuff like that yet, but we'll get there like towards the end of all this portion. Then we'll start talking about how we used to do, how we adhered everything and the different types of adhesives you can use.
Yeah.
So because there's more than one. So
we're not going to show you how to make it stuff on this. We're just going to explain it all.
There's YouTube videos for that.
Yeah, we're old. We don't have time for that. But so is that
I already walk trainees through that.
Yeah.
I show them how to do it, and
that's a part of his training thing. So
yeah.
Shoes.
Yes,
are you ready to move on to shoes?
Yeah, I think we are. So should we go back to the beginning?
Yeah, because I don't remember what was used in the beginning.
Okay, so
duct tape.
When things started changing, like initially it was all, actually in the very beginning, the Ghost Town Monsters wore cowboy boots until they burned through them and they just got another pair.
Nice.
They didn't have anything else to help them prolong the wear. And then things started changing a little bit. People were wearing like jungle boots. And if I say that, I'm sure people will look it up and they'll know exactly the kind. So damn uncomfortable, but for whatever reason, we all used them. But they initially used duct tape, and plastic, like pieces of plastic from recap.
Right.
You glue it on. That's what Todd started doing too.
Yeah.
And then I think the first time I saw somebody shift to metal was plumber's tape, and that was Wade. He had like this T thing. It was like this thick on his toe too. Yeah. And
that's what I used my first time.
Yeah. So it's funny too, because like my first pair of sliding shoes, I kid you not, were wrestling shoes, was some kind of weird strips of random plumber's tape that I burned through in like 2 nights. And then the wrestling shoes were done after that, and I just try to tape them up, right? So, but as things started going, then I started using in 95, I got a pair of the jungle boots.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to glue a recap to it. And this is where it gets interesting. I used the wrong adhesive, right? So I'd slide to pop off every time because the adhesive needs to stay a little bit pliable.
Yeah.
And then I got this bright idea. A lot of people, you guys are probably not going to believe it, but there's a lot of stuff that I actually tried out that it worked, that stuck. So, and then I decided to shift to what you see now as steel toes. My dad was throwing out a pair of his old work boots that were steel toes. I said, "Hey Dad, are you throwing these away?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going to take them." He's like, "Why?" I go, "I need the steel toes out." He's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "I'm going to cut them out." And he's like, "Okay." So I cut them out and I glued them to the outside of my boot. Again, I used the wrong adhesive, but it held for 2 slides, and it was money. Yeah. It was money because there wasn't a lot of drag and it was durable. I couldn't even feel the pressure on my toe or anything. one time I hit the ground, I hear cling, 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 you know. So, but yeah, now steel toes, that's what everybody uses
Yeah.
because that's the best solution for what we do.
Yeah. There's no other way of doing it. You do
Yeah.
steel toes. Just make sure you put them on to where you're not clip clopping, because that's fucking annoying.
Well, here's the thing. It's hard. It's hard not to have that because all steel toes have that lip on the bottom, and they're not designed to go over a shoe. So the only way you can really get it to fit is slide it over the bottom of the sole too. The only way you can not clip clop is if you have somebody that's got an air Dremel or some kind of a saw that can cut that lip off, and that's not easy.
I always cut the center.
Yeah.
Then I bent it out more and put it on.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
You went like that?
Yeah. The second I clip clopped, I'm like, this is annoying all night.
Yeah.
Click, 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 click. So freaking annoying. And people always
But the
turned around
horses-
because they were able to see, and it's like it really affects your slides.
Yeah.
So I was like, dude, I ripped those things off, and I tried bending it. Obviously, and I'm like, dude, these things won't fucking bend. And then I
Yeah,
realized
you got to heat it.
because of the lip underneath, it's forcing it not to go out. So I was like, well, let me just cut the lip part in the middle. That way, it opened up that lip.
Yeah.
So that cut just went, and then it just opened just enough. And it's just a little bit. At least for my shoes, I only needed to open it up just a little, because I had like a gap, like say yay big.
Yeah.
And it was just enough for my toe when I ran to just clip, 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 clip.
Yeah.
So I just stuck it onto something round, and I just boom, hit it with a freaking sledgehammer, and it opened
Push
it up.
it down. Yeah.
Put it on, glued it, and never had that issue. So
Well, see, that's the thing too. I mean, talking about different types of shoes. I mean, you got boots, right? I mean, it's funny because I actually used a pair of 3-hole Chaka Boot Doc Martens one year, or for a couple of years. Those are great because the steel toe set right on top of that ridge.
yeah,
Because I had the lip cut off of it, and it sat right on top of that ridge, so it's perfect. Except that the Doc Marten sole wasn't durable for that type of use.
oh, not at all.
It's split out.
Yeah.
You know, try to glue it back together, and it split again because it was my brake foot.
Well, it was funny because when you told me about or someone told me, but I don't remember who it was, but when someone told me about the steel toe, I saw it, however the situation was. And then explained, I just took it out and glued it on
That was
top.
in '97, dude, when we were teaching you how to slide in front of birdcage.
Right. So I went to go try and take out the steel toe, and it was a bitch. I didn't have the tools back then, and it was a bitch for me to get that thing out of this.
It's crazy because all you need is a box cutter.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I asked you. So I was like, screw this. I just cut the freaking fabric out, and I was like, done. These are my shoes now, and I just used these steel toe shoes, which were fine. But when you're really running around, cutting and dodging people, it became a problem.
They get loose.
And then that's when you told me, how to take them out, and that's when I switched to running shoes.
Yeah.
And
See, that's the thing too. People you use skate shoes too, right?
No, I used running shoes. But
That was it?
The whole time, yeah.
Okay, I thought you used a pair of the Americas that I gave you.
It's very possible I tried them out, but and honestly, I couldn't tell you how many shoes I tried. I don't remember, but I know that I had once I went to a running shoe.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
Yeah,
I stuck to that.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's like I've used, like I said, I've used wrestling shoes, which are the most comfortable.
Yeah, but
they're not durable. And then I shifted to multiple kinds of boots. I used to get the Survivor boots from Walmart. You know, and those would last me a 2 or 3 seasons, and I'd remake them.
Right.
And I had my Doc Martens, and then I actually came across a pair of New Balance turf shoes, the most durable fucking shoes I've ever worn. And if I could find them again, I would wear them to this day. The sole was still intact, and the steel toe was destroyed.
Wow.
Yeah, legit. So I use those. But now, because again, like I said, I don't slide full time for an event. I shifted back to wrestling shoes because they're easier to work in when I'm teaching, when I'm training people. They're more comfortable, and I can still show, I can still be hands on and show them what they need to know.
And they give you the support.
Yeah. So
really
I spent $100 on them, but they're good.
Yeah.
They're good shoes.
In your case, that works.
Yeah.
but I
There's a
don't.
a lot of people use wrestling shoes.
Yeah, but there's a lot of shoes out there.
I mean,
that
not wrestling shoes, running shoes.
running
Okay.
shoes. Yeah, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
There are a lot of pairs of shoes you can just go to Walmart and get that will work. They're
Yeah.
cheap. They'll last.
Yeah.
You know,
Even Ross in the discount section.
yeah. I always bought mine at Payless. You know,
Yeah.
when Payless was around.
Yeah. So just to touch on the steel toes, you guys, the best way to get those is if you go to Walmart, you buy a pair of steel toe rain boots. They're probably going to be like $20.
Yeah.
You just cut the steel toe out of those and glue them onto your shoe, and that's it.
Or find a steel toe manufacturer and just buy it from them.
I'm working on that.
Yeah.
They're hard to find right now.
Oh, I
We
can
did
imagine.
have a source like that when we were still talent, but that dried up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So
I mean,
those
so that's
are-
pretty much the gist of the shoes. That's pretty much the gist of equipment.
yeah. I mean, obviously, as you build things too, you're not going to know where your wear spots are.
Yeah.
Until you're out there for a night or two and you'll see where everything's wearing, and then you can make adjustments accordingly, whether it be just adding ABS glue, which is a quick fix, or you could glue strips of leather to it, plastic. I even tried gluing washers into key spots, but if it's in a spot where your foot bends, it's going to pop off. Like within an hour, it's gone.
Yeah. I always end
No.
up just using the ABS.
Yeah.
I would go out. So like I would go out and slide. Same thing with gloves. I would always take my brand new gloves and I would just rub them on the ground,
Yeah.
and and then I would just look. Okay, these are the spots, and then adjust them accordingly to you making a fist and
Yeah.
being able to grab, or however you decide to do it.
Yeah.
But you always want to find your wear spots that way. Just rub it on the ground. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah.
Same thing when you get new shoes. Just go out and slide with your new shoes and just find out where their spots are wearing at.
Yeah.
You're gonna grind them up at first, which is good. You
Yeah.
want that because you want to know where to cover
Yeah.
to
All the no spots.
yeah, exactly, the no spots.
So just to backtrack a little bit on gloves, we were talking about what people use in the palms. I still prefer using washers because of dexterity, but I did something different with my washers now. I still use 4 large washers,
Mhm.
but what I actually do now is bend them to the shape of my hand.
Yeah.
Like on the outsides here, these two, and then this one here especially.
Yep.
You bend to the structure of your hand here, and this one stays flat.
Exactly.
It's actually, 1, it provides a better gluing surface. 2, more protection.
Yep.
For your hand. And again,
And they don't
know.
fall, and they won't fall off.
yeah, exactly. I've never had a washer fall off like that. When they were flat, they would start to separate and have to re-glue.
Yeah, because when they're flat on the end here, if you hit on that side, you're putting a lot of pressure on
Yep.
this side, and that side's always going to fall off.
Not to mention, there's more risk of catching on a crack.
That too. That
So
too.
now I don't. My gloves very rarely catch unless it's a fairly big crack.
Yeah, the one thing I like to do too is on the washers going towards the momentum, I would always make a almost like a gradular surface.
Like a dam
Not a dam. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I guess you could say call it a dam.
with the glue.
Yeah, so that way if you do go over a crack or something, it will just slide right over.
Yeah,
Half the time it might get caught, but at least you're kind of protecting it. So you just build the glue up all on that side
yeah.
as much as you
Better
can.
than all the time catching.
And I always filled the hole. Always.
Yeah.
That hole gets filled with glue.
See, I never did that. I always glued just the surface of the washer, and that's it.
Yeah, no, I always just would protect,
Yeah.
because I was always so rough.
Yeah, I always
slapped.
take a Sharpie too, like whether a silver or black Sharpie. It's black usually shows up on black,
Mhm.
which is weird. But I would kind of mark where I want to place the washer, and then I would bend those washers, and then I'd sand them down. You gotta
Mhm.
rough them up a little bit to provide a little bit more of a gluing things, a little more edges for the glue to grab onto.
Right.
And then I glue it into place.
The best
You
thing
know.
to do is to take a Dremel tool and just use a metal cutter and just kind of do little
Yeah.
slices on the bottom part, the part you're going to glue, because then
Yeah.
the E6000 will go into those and just grip. It'll grip
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
And always, 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 always let your glue set for more than 24 hours.
Yeah.
Don't touch it because that stuff has to set, especially if you're going to be slamming your hands on the ground,
Yeah.
and that shit needs to set.
Yeah. So let's touch a little bit. Here's another thing. There's another adhesive that people have used, but we have a guest coming on that uses it. So let's let them talk about that, you know.
Yeah.
But the stuff that we will mention that we've already mentioned ABS glue, and that's the hard plastic stuff. Basically, it's PVC glue to put plumbing together, PVC plumbing together. That shit works amazing, smells bad. E6000, it's an industrial strength adhesive that you can get at a craft store. I found that on a fluke, but once I did, it went like wildfire. It's one of those other things, it's like that stuff works great, but it takes a long time to cure. Bare minimum, we say 24 hours for a full cure, but bare minimum 12. And you can use it, but there is a little bit of a risk of things popping loose.
Yeah.
You can put a fan on it overnight to help it cure quicker. That does help. The downside of E6002 is it's self-leveling. So if you have to glue something and you put it in a manner to where there's one point that's lower than the other, all the glue is going to run down to that one low point.
Yep.
And probably away and onto whatever surface the object's sitting on. So you got to put it in a manner to where it's going to dry where you need it to dry.
Right.
Another form that a lot of people used that was okay was household goop. That was a pretty sturdy glue. I used it 1 or 2 times. I didn't like it because it wasn't as strong, but a lot of people use that, and it's held up for them. That's just my preference not to use that. For PVC attachment to fabric, 100% industrial strength sticky back Velcro.
Right.
Like this. I just happen to have some here. Like this.
It's got to be industrial strength.
Yeah, industrial strength. You get this at Home Depot, Walmart, anything like that. Get a roll of it. It's like $20, and it's worth the minimizing the headaches that you're going to have. And it comes with both the male and female side, and it's good to go. This stuff is a lifesaver, especially when I used it on my pants to minimize burning through the denim.
Yeah, I don't know if this is pretty self-explanatory, and it's been pretty common, but I don't know if anybody out there does this, and I'm sure they do. Always double up your kneecaps. Going back to knee pads, double up your kneecaps.
Oh yeah, the recaps.
Always,
yeah.
Or your base recap should always be brand new.
Yeah, you never want to slide on the base recap.
Always get a spare recap, and that should be the one that you slide on, because it's just adding additional safety and that you're just doubling up that press. When you're jumping on your knees, it's compressing, and it's taking less impact.
Highly recommended that before when you attach the recap, you scuff up the base cap,
right,
and use the industrial strength sticky back Velcro. All you need is one strip right down the center on the initial cap and the inside of the recap. Scuff up the inside of the recap too, again, so that the adhesive has something more to grab onto. Once you do that, you roll around on it a little bit, and the more you slide, the more it's going to stick. It's about 99.999% chance that you will not lose a cap. Every once in a while, you'll lose a cap if you catch on something, and if it's that hard where it's going to pull it loose. But it's a big rarity. When it comes to that. Yeah. Double stick tape that comes with that, with some of them, don't use
that. Yeah, at all.
It's not worth the headache, especially when you need to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to scrape all that double stick foam off before you can put a new strip on. So with the Velcro, all you got to do is put it on. Whatever's on the base cap stays there, and you just put the other piece on the new recap.
And again, they provide it because will it hold? Yes, if you're riding a skateboard ramp.
Yes.
It'll hold, but not when you're sliding.
Yeah.
These
But 187, actually their recaps and their pads 100% Velcro.
That's good.
Yeah, and they have a lock-in strap too. Not on the Viternal caps, but the other caps. They have a lock-in strap so it holds inside, so that if the cap gets loose, it's not going to fall off.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to buy a pair of those.
Yeah.
I need to get a pair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the gist of equipment. So I guess we can just move on to.
I guess.
Huh?
I guess.
Move on. So, if you have any questions regarding anything that we've talked about at this point, just hit us up on Instagram. you know, the chances are we probably won't answer them on a public forum like the comment section in YouTube. Only because it just opens us up to being responsible if you do something stupid, which
Yeah,
a very good
disclaimer: we are
chance.
not responsible. We're only giving you guys
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. So,
not to mention, neither one of us are really on YouTube to catch those messages that come through all the time.
but yeah, I mean, I catch a good majority of them, but like I can't answer them all.
Yeah, it's
And
hard.
but anyways, yeah, just hit us up on, you know, hit Scott up, because this is his bag, this is his profession, this is what he's doing. Hit him up. But you know, we'll move into my favorite parts, which are, you know, techniques and scare tactics, tricks.
Yeah,
Those are all
technique is a big part of what I do too. It's, you know.
Yeah. So first, we'll start off with technique, and so a lot of this stuff we're going to kind of skim through because
It's a lot.
it's a lot, and it is, and you guys may not think it, and a lot of people out there that just kind of jumped into it and naturally was able to get through it, you're going to probably think, you know, oh, well, it's kind of pointless. But the bottom line is, you have to learn how to crawl before you walk. You have to learn certain things before you go out and you slide at another human being for the purpose of scaring them. There's no way around it. You have to do it.
Safety is of utmost priority.
Yeah, and in addition to that, which is a huge part of Scott's training, is conditioning. But
yeah,
you know,
very much
there's a lot of conditioning that you need to do, because I'm telling you, and we learned this the hard way back in the day. We'd go out first night and we would just slide, wouldn't stretch. And these are the beginning days, early days. We wouldn't stretch. I'm telling you, it sucks, because when you slide, you use muscles that you don't usually use.
Yep.
And you didn't even think were there. And it's,
you know, people always say it. You slide for the first time. It's like, you know, I don't know how many people I've heard say it. It's like you've done 1,000 squats.
It's exactly it.
Yeah. You can't walk.
Yeah.
The next day you're in hell.
It. Yeah. And it's funny because like a lot of times when I first started, as I mentioned in episode 3, when I came on, I was hired, my very first year I was hired as an extra for, you know, Haunt. I wasn't even hired as a monster. I was like, oh, well, you're on a waiting list. It's like, oh, okay. And I didn't think I was going to work, but they're like, don't worry, you'll get called within, you know, the second weekend. And I'm like, okay. And the reason is because just like sliding, scaring, being a talent, being a scare actor, it's physically insane
and mentally,
and it's physically, mentally, it's insane. And at the same time, you're dealing with a very unique crowd. There's something about being scared that draws in a certain type of crowd. And we're off topic here, but it all kind of it coincides with each other. It's a whole different beast than, you know, doing anything else physical. So just, you have to, when it comes to technique, you need to really make sure that you can do the basics. You know, you're not just
basics. We mean by sliding,
stopping's number
and
one.
avoiding collision at all costs,
bailing out, stuff like that. And you know, I mean, we're going to talk about certain things, but
guest safety is paramount. That's the priority.
Mm-hmm.
The sliders safety is secondary.
Yeah, because sorry, you injure somebody, they can sue you, as well as the event you're working at. So
yeah,
don't think you're going to be protected by the event. They will sue you. It's called a tort action. They're going to sue everybody involved.
Yep.
You know, and if they want to be a-holes enough, they can technically go after the equipment companies. You may think I'm crazy, but it's extremely, extremely true.
Yeah, they can do that.
So with that said, technique. Let's get into technique. So
yeah,
I'll let you kind of take over this
Yeah.
because this is your
Well,
bag, and you can kind of
yeah.
talk what you want to talk about.
So, but before I even like any trainee group that I have, before we even like, first of all, we go through an audition process, and that's where I do an evaluation. That's where they, like, I've had many people that have never slid before come in and audition. Some can't hack it. Some are like, okay, they got a lot of potential, and they're getting better every time. That's the only time where they gear up and slide before the preemptive stuff that I talk about. Before, after, say they're like, okay, we're on the team, and that's when the first thing I do with any new team is I sit down and have a discussion with them about, before we even pad up or even do conditioning. I sit down and have a discussion with them about sleep patterns, which is important. And anybody that's worked a haunt event that could be watching will know that sleep patterns are very irregular, because majority of people that do haunt have day jobs, and then they come in and do haunt, so your sleep is slim to none on the days you're doing double duty. We talk about that, hydration and the type of hydration, not just water, not soda, not heavy on energy drinks. I get it, energy drinks, they do come in handy every so often, but you can't use it as a crutch. You need to take in things that have electrolytes. And when I say electrolytes, I mean things like Pedialyte, powder packs. Those taste better than the pre-made stuff, but I know that some of the pre-made stuff is getting better now because those are electrolytes that your body needs. You can take a Gatorade and dilute it by 50%. You'll get the electrolytes with, not all the sweet and the sodium.
Sugar.
Yeah, the sugar and stuff. I mean, you need sodium too, but you want to bring it in slowly so your body can metabolize it. That's another thing too. Like, if anybody's worked out hard and they're thirsty afterward and they chug water and they throw up, that's because your body can't metabolize it fast enough. So if you work out hard and you drink slowly, your body can absorb it. If you drink it fast, it's just going to regurgitate it. Trust me, I've done it, and it sucks. My face has been green, not from sliding, but from doing other stuff, and it just, yeah, it's a bummer. Your diet's important too. I highly recommend that you minimize, if you can cut it out completely, you minimize your fast food intake. Those aren't foods that are going to give you energy. Those are foods that are going to drag you down. Fast food is kind of a killer when it comes to stuff like that.
You should stay away from the shit anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
And all you guys working at Not Scary Farm, stay away from the fucking, berry juice or whatever the hell that crap is.
Yeah. Well, if you can't stay away from it, we get it, but dilute it and don't drink it too often. Yeah. I mean, don't try to roll out of there with gallons of it,
God.
Type of thing. And then I'll touch a little bit on how your diet should be. You should be eating cleaner proteins. Yes, carbs, depending on where your body stands, but usually a higher range of protein intake is the best. And clean proteins too, complex carbs like brown rice, sweet potatoes, veggies, stuff like that. That stuff's going to give you energy.
Yep.
And these are all the things that I talk to them about. And then after we do that, obviously we do a little Q&A if they have questions. Now, here's the thing, you guys, this is something that I can tell you about it. I can help you set some things up, but it's all going to be a lot of self-discipline. And if you're the type of person that wants to slide for years to come with minimizing injuries and being able to leave the business on your own accord instead of you got hurt or you're broken, then I can do that. Yeah, I can teach that. Now that's where I always say I take the trial and error portion out of it for the kids nowadays, and that way these kids can actually push forward for much longer without all the aches and pains. Then once that's done, then we get into conditioning. Now the conditioning is another thing too, that in my training sessions, I do it, and that's before we even pad up, but that's another thing that after I depart and the team is already self-sustaining, everybody needs to do that on their own self-discipline or as a team. Everything with my conditioning is based off of the way you use your muscles, all the movements. So a lot of the exercises, you have the general exercises, but then a lot of the exercises mimic slider movements that inevitably happens that people don't realize. And sometimes people think, and I've even been asked, like, why are we doing this? And I show them why we do it. And I'm like, because it mimics this movement when you slide, you know, and this is working that certain area. Like a simple thing, like working your hip flexor is going to reduce the soreness and the possibility of pulling that muscle, because that's one of those areas that's susceptible to it in sliding. You know, your hamstring is another big one. Hamstring, groin, glute, and hip flexor, like in the front of your hip. Those are the big ones that can sustain a lot of damage from sliding.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, I try to do everything from head to toe, but my main focus is from the core all the way down to the feet. And when I say feet, I mean, I do certain exercise that helps strengthen the foot area and the ankle in general. A lot of people, you know, again, a lot of exercises are like, what is this for? And I explain it to them. It's a simple thing as trying to balance on one foot for like 2 minutes. And it's crazy that a lot of people can't do that, but it's because you have a weak ankle,
Yep.
you know, and weak foot muscles. So all those things, again, you strengthen those, reduces the risk of rolling an ankle, you know,
which doesn't feel good.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. So, and you know, it depends on how much potential a group has, but majority of clinics, I can get people up and running and ready for an event in about 7 days. A full team ready to go in about 7 days. Is it always happen that way? No, it doesn't. Sometimes it takes longer. You know, I mean, running the Queen Mary boot camp, you know, we did that once a week for months and months and months. And some people, it took that long to really be like, oh, I got it now, you know, but in a scenario like that, we have time, you know. In a clinic, when I go out to an event, there's no time, you know, I have to impact everything. So we got to work at it pretty hard. And then after all the conditioning, which happens every day before gearing up, then we pad up and ease into sliding slowly just to get the muscles nice and loose. And then the first thing we work on is stopping short distances, long distances from about 50% pace, and then building up all the way up to 100 and stopping on a dime. And a big thing is on how you stop. There's a certain way your foot placement has to be to increase your stopping power when you're coming at it out of a slide full speed. And that's the thing too. You got to be quick. I mean, anticipating what's going to happen is a key factor too. That's something that I continue to tell people, but it has to click in their brain at some point. You know, that's a big one. Teaching people how to bail out. If somebody, because we all know here that those of you guys that have even went to a haunted event, the crowd itself is like its own entity. It has its own life and it moves in different directions. So as a slider, you need to be able to key in on that and react in a split second and avoid any kind of collision. Even if it means you bailing out and running into a wall or something, that's better than clipping a guest or taking out a guest. So something like that. And then I also do drills with cones, which a lot of people know. We use that because it's a scenario in the sense of, okay, this is what happens if a person's here. Act like this is a person. This is what you're going to do to get around them. And these are some of the things that get really boring because they have to be repetitive.
Yeah.
Because if you only do it once or twice, it's not going to stick in the brain and it doesn't come instinctively. You keep doing it, then it becomes instinctive, and then it's going to make you do better at your event. And then as people progress, they learn how to stop, bail out, change direction, stuff like that. Then I actually throw people in the mix. I'll cone off an area and I'll have an X number of people walking around as guests. And then I'll have maybe 2 or 3 sliders getting in the mix, you know, attacking slides like they were at the event, you know, and the people that are in there, whether it's me or some other people, okay, you guys change direction on a dime, you know, make it tough for them. It forces the sliders to think quick, you know, and if they make a mistake during training, that's the time to make the mistake. You know, if you have a question, no question is a stupid question. You ask the question, you know, because I'd rather have the question asked more than once than have somebody go out there and do something wrong and get hurt or hurt somebody because they didn't want to ask the question again.
Right.
That type of thing. And then what I normally do through the whole process of everything is after everybody's starting to get warmed up, like usually at the end of every practice, I'll do a little free slide thing so people can have some fun. So it's not super redundant for them. You know what I mean? Where it's not super tough. We're like, oh God, we got to keep going because I mean, they're impacted days. And when I say impacted, it's 4 to 6 hours of sliding, 7 days straight, 8 days straight, just depending on how things go. Now, again, after something like that happens, they leave, it falls back on the trainee / talent sliders shoulders to continue to train that. That way they have all the tools they need going in, because when I leave, I give them all the tools they need to be ready to go, but they have to continue to build on it so they stay sharp.
Right.
And that's where things become even more successful for them, and they really, learn how to take sliding on themselves, and they really start growing. So the biggest thing though is stopping and being able to get out of the way. You can't learn how to go fast if you don't have control and if you can't stop. Again, crawl before walk, walk before run. Some of these guys now, you see these guys doing all this crazy stuff. Guess what? They started out there too. They built their way up. Now they have the tools to do it.
Right.
So it's kind of a unique thing, but my job is to make sure people are ready to go and minimize, and with the reduction of injury process, and that's my goal for any event that I work with is that I want to be able to reduce their insurance costs because of how these guys are trained. They're trained properly. So when they go into a situation, it's going to reduce the fact that they could possibly clip somebody, because I don't know if anybody knows, but if you get hit by a slider and whether it's a solid clip or hit, it's not fun.
No.
It's not fun. I mean, let's face it. I mean, all of us sliders have actually hit each other because sometimes we don't see each other and we go for the same scare and, oh shit, and sometimes there is no time to react. It's going to happen, but we try to minimize that.
Yeah.
So technique is very, very, very important and a priority before you even learn how to go fast and do tricks. And there's two different ways to slide too. There's upright sliding, which is just on your knees and your toes. And then there's prone sliding, which is your hands, knees, and toes. And I say toes too, because your toes are touching the ground. There's 6 points of contact when you're sliding on your hands and knees and toes. When you're upright, it's obviously 4 points of contact. The more points of contact you have, the more control you'll have. So, and then you get into the show stuff and it's a whole different world because it's a controlled environment. Yes,
because you mentioned sliders running into each other, which really a lot of that can revolve around different scare tactics from each slider. Having one that's a roamer that likes to just kind of pop down and scare people, and then you have the ones that like to be stealthy and come out of the darkness and slide out into the middle of the openness, into the open area. We had that all the time. A good majority of the people knew where the stealthy sliders were, back in the days, and maybe even now. But back in the day, they used to call us people, the group, the wall holders, because we would sit up against the wall and porch sitters and wait for that perfect scare when we weren't running around, because we all did everything. I know I did. I enjoyed walking around because that introduced several different scare tactics. But then you had the people that just like to sit back and just wait for that perfect scare or wait for that perfect group.
Yeah, I mean, we had our hot spots. But
spots are different.
Yeah,
spots are totally different from actual scare tactics, because the actual scare tactic you can do anywhere. Maybe not.
You can be out in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Scare tactics have proven that they're tactics for a reason. I used to do them at Disneyland, broad daylight. Yeah. I could walk through Disneyland and scare a ton of people. I went to Fright Fest, Discovery Kingdom this past October, and I was scaring people, out of costume. It's a tactic for a reason.
Wait, you did that this
I
year?
did.
Asshole.
Yeah, I got yelled
You're an
at.
asshole.
I got yelled at, but I don't care. I was having fun. And plus, the monsters sucked, so I had to show them up. Anyways,
Oh, stop that.
no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not talking about Magic Mountain.
Old fart.
Discovery Kingdom.
Yeah.
Um,
You're a cranky old fart.
I am a cranky old fart. That's what happens. You get old and have kids.
Well, see, that's the thing too. It's like you have your hot spots where you get the scares, but like you were saying, when you cruise around, you can be walking down the street and still hit a slide.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, one of my favorites is doing a slide by from behind the guest. You slide on an angle, you go by him, and you pop up right in front of them.
Right.
I lost count on how many times I've dropped people by doing that because they have no idea where it's coming from. All of a sudden, we're in front of them.
Yeah.
And they're losing their mind.
Yeah.
No.
My favorite, and it was effective every time, is when I called the shadow curtain. I don't know, kind of flip flop, but I would call it the curtain because I would use guests to block me. So if I'm walking and there's a group of guests coming at me, I wasn't targeting them at all. I was targeting a group or two behind them, and I would just run right past that group and use them as a shield.
Yeah.
And pop, and it was effective every single time. Again, unless that group scattered, the front group scattered, then it wasn't as effective because the people behind react to that. But
you still got a residual scare though.
Yeah, still got a scare. Either way, it was effective, and that was my favorite. That when I roamed around, that was my go-to.
Yeah,
like 90% of the time, and it was amazing. And yeah, creeping up behind people, sliding right in front of people as they're walking, and them not even seeing you, but they heard it and they stopped and they knew they saw something in front of them. Just slide by. I don't know what you would call that. I don't know if anybody. I don't know if we have like names for any of this shit.
Well, that's like you're saying in front of me. I was gonna slide by too. My slide by is from the back to the front at an angle where it's like.
Well, you slide and stop though. So
because what I do is I slide by them,
Yeah.
like they're this way.
Yeah.
I slide by them and I actually do a 180 turn and pop up in front of them.
Yeah, that's different than a slide by. If you just slide right, you just slide right in front of them and just keep going.
Yeah.
Out of the way. Just kind of a breeze, like just a shadow figure.
One thing we forgot to touch on this is sliding in general, not just scare tactics, but what I was talking about is one thing that I teach too is learning how to read a crowd. Read reaction of people, like something like body language.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. You can tell who's going to be a problem once you start keying in on certain things and who you're going to get the scare from. Is that going to make it where you get 100% hit ratio on your scare? No, because sometimes those things can be deceiving, but it increases your level of being able to get a scare more often than not because of that. Not to mention it raises the safety factor for you being engaged by a shitty guest.
I mean, we can even make that a topic really, because like that is the one thing that made, I guess that's the one thing that kind of pushed me to retire was
the guests.
The guests. I didn't read, other than having a completely horrible fucking personal year, but I didn't read the crowd properly. And that's when that 14-year-old kid kicked me.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. On the porch. He kicked me, and if I didn't react, and he would have completely broke my neck.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's a whole other story. Horrible story that I don't. I'm ashamed of, for sure. Thinking back at it now, I would never ever do. But at the time, it's going through a lot of personal shit, and that was the one thing that just set me off for that year.
Yeah.
And
the thing is too is that it's a part of what we do. You're going to deal with shitty guests, and the shitty level changes from group to group, person to person,
night to night.
Night to night, and it could be hour to hour even.
Yeah, it really can.
It just depends.
It really can.
And it's a sad thing, and the problem is that sometimes you don't catch it until after something happens.
Yeah.
So one thing I do try to explain to these guys too is like, you're going to be in close proximity with guests. There's no way around it because you're in a street zone. There's no wall for you to duck behind. You got to grow a little bit thicker of a skin and understand that some things happen and you got to let it go. You got to choose your battles basically, depending on the severity. And that's going to be, different for everybody. But in the same tone, it's like, you got to figure out which things are really going to be, okay, I need to report this type of thing, sometimes and sometimes people out of reaction, they'll do this and they'll hit you. That's an accident. You let it go.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, those people are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, because I knew it was a reaction, so there's a lot of moving parts, believe it or not, to doing this weird thing called sliding.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts to it.
It's a big deal too, because if you can't read the crowd, which really that alone is a scare tactic. It truly is, because if you read a crowd properly, you can scare really anybody. But if you falsely read somebody and you try to scare them, slide on them, or do whatever, it could have pretty bad effects on you.
Yeah.
And that's just sliding in general. But or sliding specific, but and scaring in general. You got to learn how to read a crowd. And
what's funny is another scare that I really liked doing was the gangbang scare. Do you remember that? Where you get like 3, 4, 5 of us that just hit the same crowd at once.
Yeah.
That crowd loses their shit. I call it the gangbang scare because we're in there. I know it sounds bad, but everybody loses their shit, and then we're standing there looking at each other. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
We go, we're on our way.
The one I used to love doing was when we'd all gather up in a circle and pound the ground.
Oh yeah, the circle game.
Yeah. And then we would just run out and just run towards the crowd. They would
wait till the crowd gets thicker, thicker, thicker.
And they would lose their mind. It's so funny how people would just scatter as we scatter.
It's the creative part that really drives a lot of people.
Yeah.
In my honest opinion, the people that are more creative tend to do better. People that struggle, that they need more time to get their bearings. And the same thing is when it's reading a crowd. It's like that is not something that comes, easily to everybody. So that takes time to work up into. So
I had to learn how to read a crowd very quickly. Really quickly. I didn't read a crowd my first year in a maze, and that's why I always stayed up on top of my little ledge. I felt safer there. As much fun I was having, in the on the floor running around, I didn't read the crowd enough, and I didn't know how. I learned that in the streets. My first year in the streets, I learned it.
The thing is that people don't learn, especially if you're a slider, is that when you go from a maze to a street or whatever, when you come into an event and it's your first year and you're on streets, when you get thrown into a mix like that, it forces you to learn quickly.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're going to get swallowed up. Especially
on a busy night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some places, you got 30,000+ people. It's like, okay, it's go time.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be on, you need to be on your game.
And you also have to know when to slide. I couldn't tell you how many times, and I'm sure you've seen it too, be doing it longer. How many times I've seen somebody slide into a super busy crowd and just get trampled on. And it's just like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You can't just slide to slide. You don't need to slide every single time just because you have the equipment on. It's not what it's there for.
It's in addition to what you already have as a character.
You're a character first, and your sole purpose is to scare. You're not a slider first. So you have to keep that in mind. You need to figure out a way to incorporate the sliding into your character and not the other way around. You can't always slide. And I've learned that from experience. I learned that my first weekend being in streets, my first weekend sliding, being in streets, not my first weekend as Monster. I slid every single scare with a slide, and it wrecked me first night. Well, I didn't learn what I do next week, next night, same thing. every single person, I felt like I had to scare them with a slide.
Yeah.
But you learn how to be able to utilize your gloves, utilize, when people walk by. Everyone fucking does it now. It's like when they walk by and they just slap their kneecap. That's a way of utilizing your equipment as a monster.
It's even your body motion in general, like your movements alone. If you catch somebody's eye and your movement creeps them out, you enhance that to draw them in and scare the shit out of them.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't
Props.
need to make noise. Yeah. Using props. You don't need noise. Thunder jugs. Great. They're noisy.
Yeah.
Definitely better than a fucking chainsaw. But
unless the prisoner David Dean has it and does pirouettes with it.
Oh, David Dean was the best.
Yeah.
But you don't need to make noise, to scare. And I mean, we can get into scare tactics for days on end, but like this is a slider show, so
yeah.
You don't need to make noise with your pads and your gloves just to get that scare. Just showing up in front of someone's face is going to petrify them enough.
Yeah.
To, even if you just get in and out. And speaking of getting in and out, Giggity, you need to get in and out. Don't stay in people's face. Don't linger. Don't sit there and try to intimidate them by staying in their face. Even if you think your character is intimidating and you think that they're petrified, because as petrified as they are, they're going to get equally as irritated with you being in their face. And don't fucking talk to people. Don't like try and be all dialogue-y and stop that shit. Anyways, that's a whole nother topic. I fucking hate that shit.
So we didn't really touch on like the show stuff.
I think that the show and tricks could probably do another. I think we should just keep that as a third, like a number 3.
No,
Part 3. Dude, we're going on like an hour and 40 minutes. Just
so
on
what?
this
We
shit.
can just touch on the show stuff. We can do that in like 15 minutes, and then
On just the show stuff or tricks? It's two different
just
things.
the show, because the show and tricks we can kind of encompass.
Okay.
It's easy. It's super easy.
Okay.
I mean, so let's just go off the history a little bit.
All right.
97 is when show sliding actually started.
Well,
And it was designed to entice the crowd for the hanging in the corral.
to amp them up.
Yeah, get them going, get them excited. So when the show came up, they're going to lose their mind when they do all the crazy shit on stage.
Yep.
So was it structured like things are now? No. We just came up with ideas like, we did the monster bowling, drag racing, jumping, slider pede, monster limbo, all those different things we did. And then
It really was a fly at the seat of your pants type thing. It was just like whatever. I mean, did we know we were going to do limbo that night? Of course. Did we do limbo almost every show? Of course. Did we do tunnel almost every show? Almost.
slider pede, yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't okay. At this point we're going to do limbo and then we're going to move into this. No, it wasn't structured. It wasn't structured to music.
Yeah.
Dude,
It'd be like, oh, hey, let's do this now.
Yeah, but and it wasn't even that. It was just like someone will stand in the middle of the thing with their legs open, like,
Yeah.
come through, and that's how tunnel would start. It is, and you would just see, people coming with the stick and just holding the stick and just going like this. One
And the
person
next
will
thing you
hold
know,
one
we
end,
got
and
stands.
then we got stand. I remember when we first made you guys first made the stands. Oh, those are
David
the
Dean.
orange.
Yeah, David Dean made
he and his
those.
woodworking, the orange stands. Oh,
Yeah.
those things were rad. I wonder if he still has those.
He didn't have them the next year.
You didn't have them?
He didn't have them the next year. He only had them 1 year, and I think he got rid of them or he lost them or something.
Oh,
But yeah, those were good. They were heavy as hell, though. They were like,
They were.
I think each leg was like 15 pounds.
but they were durable, man.
Yeah.
Very durable.
So
But yeah, it wasn't structured like you were saying.
Yeah.
It was very just kind of like, and I wasn't there for the first few, but I don't. Yeah. I think you were for the first one, but like.
I was there when the shows started.
Okay, so you were
When
the
the
first
slider
year.
show started, yeah.
Okay,
Because remember I was telling.
That was 96,
I mentioned
right?
Earlier, 97.
97.
That's when I introduced jumping. into the scenario, which was just a total fluke, honestly. Those of you guys that are watching, in case you don't know, there's a lot of things that you see today that were created back then from 97 and on, you know, and then people started really taking it and developing and putting their own spin on it and making it better and better. But the core foundation of a large majority of the stuff that you guys see today, it started back then.
Yeah.
So
yeah, pretty much every trick you see nowadays, minus actually pretty much every single trick you see right today.
The toe slides, we didn't
do the toe slide, but
that's like second generation stuff.
Yeah.
You know, first generation, no, we didn't do that. You know, that's a good one too. I really like watching that.
But knee slides,
which is called a manual now. Which is called a manual.
Which it's a good name. I like it.
Yeah, manual. Yeah,
I
got that from Nani. She's like, oh yeah, manual. I'm like, yeah, that's a good name for it. Yeah,
I remember doing that. And spins. I don't know who started spinning. I couldn't tell if it was you. It was you, right?
It was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I started the manuals too.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter who starts any of it.
Yeah.
But we did it a lot. Spinning was one of my favorites
because they were fun.
They're so fun. It sucks because the one I have one spin that I have on video, but it was so fatigued. It got so sloppy. But I don't know how. I think the most spins I did was like six, just nonstop. Yeah. But my favorite ones were just to drop and do a real quick one, and then get
back up.
Yeah. Or doing spins into a jump. There's so many different tricks. The knee walk. When I saw Daryl first do the knee walk, which I don't even know if there's a name for it. Man, I really wish I had him on video doing it because the way he did it was so amazing.
Wait, those damn long ass legs too.
He had super long, skinny ass legs, and he just glided. Glided. You just see him. It's almost like how Charlene would walk. She would look like she'd float.
Yeah.
Same thing. You just see him going across. You wouldn't even hear his pads really. He just goes across.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, well, there goes Daryl.
Yeah.
Those were a lot of fun. And he would change up the speed. He would go fast. He would the best one was he would just kind of glide like he's skiing.
Yeah.
So he taught me how to do that. That one was pretty tough to pick up.
I've never been good at that slider walk ever.
Yeah, I love doing that. It was.
I'm trying to think what else was brought into. I mean, those are the, like I said, that's why I wanted to touch a little bit on the show because there's so much that it's evolved tremendously since then. And
I don't know what a lot of these kids are doing now. I know with the stuff I've seen, but I'm sure there's a ton more. Shit.
I think it's cool that we started this thing and it's stretched across the globe.
Yeah.
To see people doing it across the globe, like we were talking before we started up here. The team in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Which is super cool.
That's a trip.
So there's places in Europe that do it, and I mentioned it before, Japan, and all across the country. More prominent here in the U.S., but it's everywhere.
Well, the one thing, and we're recording this after a lot of the shows that have already been recorded, and we've already interviewed a few people at this point. But we actually got to speak to Chase from Decay Brigade.
Yeah.
And he had mentioned that Rick West was the one that approached them about doing the slider show.
Yeah, at Midsummer.
Which
Scare LA first.
Yeah. But, so I mean, like, much props to Rick West for approaching him on that because they have created, because of that, it's tailspinned into, Queen Mary slider team and show, and I mean, Decay Brigade, obviously they developed their team, and then like you've gotten teams after that, but like, that's pretty dope. I remember back in the day we tried to get Knots to do that shit and they wouldn't do it. So kudos to Rick West to, for giving them the idea to during that show. You know, Spaz and all them developing this team of amazing fucking sliders.
Yeah.
And you know, it's they're just like the stuff that they come up with, you know, which
Yeah.
you know we'll eventually get the team on here, hopefully, if
Yeah.
not individually, you know, maybe a few.
Yeah, I think it'd be easier to get a few individuals.
Yeah, getting a
To
group would be
cover it.
difficult, but you know,
Yeah.
they have completely changed the game, and I mean, I don't think anybody that I've seen, team wise, I don't think anybody has really come to the level, production wise and storytelling wise, yet.
Yeah.
You know, the Fright
Well, it's
Fest,
like-
the Fright Fest one's pretty sick. It was really good.
Yeah. I love that show.
Yeah, it was
mean,
good.
I was told you're gonna like it. I'm like, okay, I get there. I'm like, okay, the show is sick.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the Queen Mary one's really good. When you know,
That
hopefully,
takes a long time to put together.
hopefully that will come back.
Yeah. You know, the thing is too, is that, you know, and I said this back in 2016 when Lee and I spearheaded the first Sliders Unite show. And when we interviewed with Albert at West Coaster, you know, I explained to him, I said, you know, sliding's always been there, but now that the brigade's involved, they've actually pushed the image of sliding to the forefront more so people see it.
Right.
More so than they did in the past, like when we were going through it. And that's awesome, you know. And a lot of people may not know, but that show was created for the reason that, one, we all wanted to work together again, you know, and it was cool to work with different factions from different events, you know, all over California. And one event, I mean, for me, I had a blast scaring with some of the guys at Universal and Dark Harbor, you know, before I transitioned over there. That was awesome tag team with that. But the main reason for us to put that together, and people probably think this is stupid, but it's fact, is that there was so much animosity in the industry between factions from different, and it wasn't just sliders,
Monsters.
but that was a big portion of it, you know, from different factions, from different events. So we were able to finally, after 10 years, put this show together and show people, you know what, this is how the community needs to be.
Yeah,
And
which
this
never
is
made
how
any
well we work together.
never made any sense to me why, like, at the time it was called, I think there was a Shipwreck.
Shipwreck, and then
had a lot of hate for us as not as
yeah,
scary
they
for
did.
everyone. They talked so much shit when we would go visit their event, and
And they
you know,
would sticker up Scary Farm when they came in.
yeah, and then the same
I'm
thing.
like, if you hated us so much, how come you came?
Yeah, the same thing with the Universal Monsters before Universal closed, where they
Mhm.
shut down. It was the I called it Phase One. And their Phase One, like, yeah, they just back in the day, they just like had all kinds of hate.
Yeah. And it's good to see that it's not as prominent now. I mean,
No,
there's
it's
so
not.
much support in the community across the board for, you know, everybody from different areas.
Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense to
Yeah.
have egos, or it doesn't make any sense to you know, hate on each other when you're doing literally the exact same fucking thing as somebody else, except in a different event. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. You're both getting paid shit, and
Yeah.
you're having just as much fun, you know.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
yeah, maybe some people have a little bit more ability to do sliding or whatever, but it doesn't matter. You're still scaring. You're a monster. Like,
Yeah.
stop with the ego
You know,
shit. It's
It's
not.
it's great now that, you know, people from all over the place, like, you know, like my team at Queen Mary, that granted this year we're split up. I
Right.
got some with me at Hayride. There's a bunch of them at Knott's,
Mhm.
you know, and they're friends with everybody. Like I'm friends with all the people from Six Flags now,
Yeah.
you know, and so are they. And they're friends with, and all of us are friends with people in Decade in some form, you know, like some of those guys in Decade were some of my guys.
Yeah.
Back in their very beginning days when I was at Hollywood Sports.
Yeah, which I think is cool
Yeah.
because I think, you know, as unfortunate as it is that Queen Mary didn't come back, I think it was really kind of a blessing in disguise, because these monsters, your team essentially
Yeah.
got to scatter and got to go in different places, which
Yeah.
is beneficial to the other events, because I've been watching everybody that I've met at Spirit Awakens. I've been keeping a really good close eye on them via Instagram.
Yeah.
And,
Everybody you can, yeah.
and YouTube. Thank you, Anthony and Knights of Horror for covering all of it.
Yeah.
I've been watching it, and dude, they're killing it, fucking killing it. Like because they were dope at Queen Mary. Like the Queen Mary, like Dark Harbor, to me was like the next best thing to Scary Farm when it came to monsters. And monsters are what make the event. I don't give a shit how pretty your event is. Monsters make the event, hands down. Your talent is what's going to make the event. So having these people scattered at Knott's and Hayride and Fright Fest, like it's awesome.
Yeah,
It's
we don't.
really,
We
really
didn't.
cool.
We didn't. Oh, actually, we do have a guy at Fright Fest. Doom.
Yeah.
We know.
Yeah, but I know some
So-
of them. I know a few went to 17th Door or something. From what I understand.
I
Which,
think so. I'm not sure if they stayed or if they transferred to another
yeah,
one, but it's kind of weird because like I look at it, it's like I'm kind of like a proud dad.
yeah, and you should because they've all trained under you, and
They had solid training, but I needed to restructure their forms because they were a little bit sloppy.
Yeah, and I know a couple of them that that are at Knott's. They couldn't slide, but fuck, dude, they're killing it. Like,
Yeah,
um,
because they're first year, so they can't slide.
I
They're
can't.
not allowed to.
I can't remember her name, and I apologize. I don't remember your name, but Galaxy. What's her name? Galaxies.
Oh, Goddess of Galaxies.
Yeah. What's her name? I'm sorry.
Cherry.
Cherry.
She goes Cherry.
Cherry.
Well, now she's Lala Loopsy. That's her hot
Lala
name.
Loopsy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. So forgive
Yeah.
me for not remembering your name, but she is fucking killing it, dude. And
Her
she's not sliding.
and I know.
Killing it.
Caden, he goes by Redvine.
Yeah.
He was just given his name 2 nights ago.
Nice.
So he's there, and Vertigo
Yeah.
got Boardwalk 2, so he's going to be there. I think he starts this week.
Dope.
Yeah, and Sparrow and Shutters are there too. They're in Ghost Town.
Right.
So
yeah.
I
Killing
think,
it.
and actually Rampage is gonna go on the Boardwalk, and Creep is supposed to go there too, but I'm unaware of where he's landed, or if he's landed somewhere yet.
So Knott's is still pulling people in at that point.
People are they're still hiring.
So this is wow. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that makes sense. A lot of people just don't want to work right now. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, you
And
guys.
there, some people are still like, well, not quite yet.
Yeah, we're recording this. What's the date today? Sorry,
Fifth.
we're 5th. We're like very beginning of the season. Well, I won't say the beginning of the season because fucking season started like 3 weeks
Well,
ago.
it's 3 weeks ago for everybody else. 4 weeks ago
So-
for Horror Nights.
Yeah.
This started on September 6th or whatever.
Greedy bastards.
A month, yeah.
But I'm talking about so like haunt wise, Scary Farm wise, they just started a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
And
This is-
they're still hiring.
3 weeks ago.
They're still hiring, but that kind of falls in the same category as literally every single place in the world right now. Nobody wants to work.
yeah.
But yeah, they're all killing it, man. They're killing it. So kudos to you for training these guys because again, Scott trained me, and he's always had that like trainer trainer in him, I guess you can say, kind of taking somebody under his wing, and that's what he did for Chris and I when we first started, and then kind of just took off from there. And so like it's extremely important to have somebody guide you when you're new, or even when you're not new. Sorry, but like everybody can use guidance,
Yeah.
And
And I always say it. It's that hashtag that I started using. Growth is eternal.
mm-hmm.
There's always some area that you can grow in. I mean, just because I have my own business now, training people how to do this stuff, it doesn't mean I'm not continuing to grow. I still research and test things that I can implement into my programs.
Yeah.
I would be doing people a disservice if I didn't do that.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we had the shows and tricks area was a little bit short, but maybe we'll do another episode on that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too is like we're gonna end up touching on that with other guests that come on because
we're gonna have. We already had Chase. Chase comes on later on from Decay Brigade. We're gonna have a lot of the other people from DK. We're gonna get
Well, hopefully
get
gotta-
Spaz on here. He's actually the, I guess you would say the founder of it for the most
Yeah.
part. And we're gonna get more people, and a lot of the people we're gonna get on here are sliders, and like veteran sliders, like old school. So we'll get a lot of history from them, parts that we
Yeah.
missed, so.
I mean, yeah, we're old school, but dude, there's a lot of stuff that I know for a fact that we don't know about.
We're not old school,
In the
man.
80s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have
we're still generation 1, but we're not like early 80s generation.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I guess we'll just end it here. It was I hope you guys like the format of this episode.
Very loose, but hopefully you guys got some info, spark some questions. Definitely feel free to reach out to us and, ask those questions. We'll do the best we can to respond with, the answers you're looking for.
Yeah. And I'm not active slider anymore. But I can still answer questions in terms of like what I've experienced as a slider back in the day. But Scott's the guy to hit up when it comes to sliding and stuff. You want character development, man, hit me up, and I'll help you with that. But Scott's the guy that knows how to incorporate all the sliding and the safety factors, because that's the important part. So get out there, learn how to slide, do it correctly, get the right equipment.
Don't break nothing.
Figure out what equipment works for you and run with it. Because, one thing may work for somebody else that may not work for you. So you find what works for you, and keep sliding, and keep scaring, because that's what we're here for. And that's what everyone's here for, is to scare the shit out of people with this lovely technique that has been founded back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, we will see you in episode, next episode is our first guest.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of old school.
Yeah.
So so next week, man, is our very first guest, and I know we had already recorded it at this point. And, Wade's like going, dude, we recorded this like a month and a half or 2 months ago. But it was Wade Gordon, aka Green Goblin from Ghost Town Street. So be prepared for that. That's a fun one. Dude's amazing. This guy's got a lot of history, and
he's an old fart.
Well, we love him though. So
yeah, he's an old fart.
And so stay tuned for next week.
Yep. Don't forget to hit the like button, let that bell chime, and click follow on our Instagram handles.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Like and share. See you later.